Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video we are going to talk about Express server in Node.js. This video would be a 3-part series or a 4-part series I'm trying to make. I'll go through like how you can use the Express server setup, how you could use the cookies or cookie parser, and how you could use the Express views to actually like render the web pages also. So I'll be posting these videos in a 3-part series or a 4-part series as I think it's suitable for learning. But in this part, we'll be concentrating on how to set up an Express server, set up some routes. So Express server, if you don't know, it's kind of a middleware which we can initialize in Node.js to run a web server. It could help us to assign routes, and then we could set up our APIs, or even we could use Express EJS templating engine for rendering of the websites. So let's try to get on our hands dirty with the Node.js Express server, setting it up and see how we could use it. I'll be also using POSTMAN to actually test those routes, which will initially set it up and see how we could do the get or post of the within the POSTMAN. So let's see the action in practical. So in order to work with the Express server, let's start requiring certain packages and go through. I'll walk you through the code, how you can set up a very simple Express server out here. So let's say I'll use an let express is equal to require express. Now if this npm package is not installed, we'll be installing it, and I'm going to create, let's say, an app out of the express required package. So that's what I did. The another thing which I'm gonna use over here is the body parser. So I'll be requiring body parser. Now body parser could be used to parse the body or rect.body or anything. Whenever you post some information or you get some information, you could capture the information through the body parsing. And we could also set up what you call as a directory or a dir name, where you could put your public or anything based upon that. The directories for the same are set up like you have a public directory, you have a script, or you have a CSS, so that could be set up. So this is something which you could use. So I'll use app.use express dot static, and then I'll pass on the directory name, which is this one, and that picks up automatically the grunt folder from here, and then it could actually map it out for the public folders or other one. The next thing what we are going to use is the app.use, and we are going to use the body parser. So the body parser is just like when you actually submit the kind of a request, or you submit the data, so you could actually capture the data through the body parser. So we'll use that body parser. I'll say URL encoded, and then I'm just gonna pass extended is false. So that's one thing which we are setting it up. And the next thing what we need to do is we just need to make the server up. So I'll just use let server is equal to app.listen. So that's one thing. Now when you say app.listen, the server is going to listen on a specific port number. Now by default port number of HTTP is 80, but we are going to establish some another. Let's say I'll establish 3000 on that, and then there is a callback function for that. So what I'm gonna use over here is I'll just print some message console.log, and I'll say server started and listening on port, something like this. So when I'm saying the port, I could capture that port through server dot address, and then I can capture the property called as port. So that's what I could do. Now if let's say we want to run this and see this if the server is starting, so we could just use node-man to actually make those changes, and on the fly it's a hot reloading, so you could do that. But if you don't have the node-man, you could actually use the normal node to run the application, but you would have to restart the server to make those changes. So when I say node-man, if you don't have node-man install, you could just use npm install node-man. So that's how you install it, but I've already installed, so I'm just installing one more time. So you say node-man and then you say test-server.js. So once you do that, so it says server started and listening on port. So that looks fine. So the server is running and it is started listening on the port 3000. Now what we are going to do is, let's say we are going to create some routes over here. So for that, firstly, I'll just use kind of a variable, a data, which I just want to hold on. Now this is the department's data. I just have some array of objects which I could use for the demonstration purpose. Let's say I want to create some routes and I want to send some data or receive some data, so I could technically use this variable for there. Now I'll just say simply id1 and dname is legal, and id2 and dname is, let's say, tech, something like that. So that's what it is. Now the first route which we are going to set it up is let's say a get route, which we could use to get some data back to the user who's requesting that. So we'll say app.get, and I'll say get departments, and I'll say rec response, because that's what it is going to pass as a callback function. So now here, when I'm saying get departments, I just want to return all the departments which I have as a variable. So I can just use response.json and I can just use departments. That's all. That's one basic thing. Now when somebody calls localhost 3000/get departments, it is gonna return us a number of departments. By default there are 2, but in case the application is running and we are adding more departments, it could return more than 2 departments. And the last thing is, we just want to create another post message, so where we will say create department rec response, and we'll just use that. So how we are going to do is, we are going to capture the data and then push that stuff into the department. So we'll just simply say departments.push, and we'll say id, let's say rec.body.id. So we'll receive id, and we'll say dname is rec.body.dname, something like that. And once the department is pushed, so initially we have 2, once added it gets 3. I could actually use to return, so I could just simply say JSON, and I simply say, let's say result department created, something like this. Now this is the message that would actually go back to the user who's actually making this API call or requiring this route, right? It's a kind of a result back to the end user. Okay, so these are the 2 routes which we created, simple routes just for demonstration purpose. So let's see how we could use them. Let's try running this server first. Okay, so the server has started off. It's a simple 1 file and listening on 3000. Now in order to demonstrate this, either you can use a browser, but there is a special tool, I'm going to use it, which is a POSTMAN. You could download this POSTMAN. It's a free tool. You could upgrade it for some paid features also, but by default what we are going to use, we could test this with that. So once you open POSTMAN, you could create a new call because our server is running on localhost 3000, and I'll say get departments. So that's what the route is. This is the server which is running, and it's a get one. So if I do send that, So it gives me two departments. The result is there, which is ID1, dname is legal, ID2, dname is tech. So that looks fine. So it means my route is working. Now, if I want to check the second route, which is a post route, it means you send some data and then it is going to give you back some results. So I'll create another one, which is a post route. And I'll use localhost 3000 and create department. I'll go on to the body part, and which is, I'll select the URL encoded, ID, let's say, is 3, and dname is, let's say, test department, something like this. So now I need to supply two things because that's the object I need to send. So once I send it, it's a post method. It gives me a result, department created. So if you see, go back, that's what the result is, department is created. But now in order to check that whether the department has been created or not, we can go back to our previous call. So initially we had two departments. So if I call this API again, it gives me three departments because this is the department that I added in that. So this is a very simple way of creating an Express server and then actually utilizing that with two routes. I showed you how to use a get route and how to use a post route. The best tool, like probably which I've been using, is POSTMAN to test those routes. Of course, you could test them on the basis of browser also, but POSTMAN gives you a lot much flexibility in terms of let's say tokens, JOT tokens, or anything. For that also you need a professional tool, which POSTMAN does solve the purpose. So I hope guys, this video is gonna help you out in setting up the Express server. I'll be coming up with the next video in this part where you would actually see that how we could use the cookie, as well as how we could use the Express view templating engine to run those web server and web pages. So stay tuned guys, and I'll be back with more videos. Thank you.